Hey everybody, Doug here from 2 Plus Tough, and I am just chilling. I thought that in light of all the dour news that came out today, we would just sit and do a hangout. I'm just pulling the chat up on my phone here next to me so that we can chat with each other. And so basically I'm going to do this stream is I'm just going to be working on some Nurgle stuff, and I invite you to come on and join me with some hobbying. Music's kind of all over the place. But yeah, really what this is just, it's kind of been a crummy day for a lot of people with their travel plans and that kind of thing. And I thought I would just do a stream to just hang out and that kind of stuff. Remember, this is supported by Discount Games Inc. So if you are looking for new models, go ahead and check those out in the link down below. And I'll tell you what, let's get to hobbying. So if we go down here to the downward cam, let me just get my light situation sorted. Hey, yo. There we go. Everything kind of got shuffled around as I was doing some work here. So, let me walk you through kind of what's been going on with me. Put that there. Awesome, I can see the chat now. So, if you guys don't know, I came into ownership of a lot of Gene Stealer cult. This is my second time doing the army. But it's all entirely different models, so I haven't painted the same model again yet. And so that's what I'm doing over here. Oh man, that glue really stuck down. Now hold this one up. So here's a biker. Let me get the light over here. That might help us all out. And I don't know how close I can get with this thing still not zooming, but basically I went for the Rusted Claw theme, I believe what it's called. Maybe it's a Rusted Cog. Claw, I think is what it is, where they have orange jumpsuits and just gray little armor bits. And basically everything here is done with contrast and washes. Very little actual painting is going on in the traditional sense. And so, yeah, that's all that's going on with them. To start off, I'm going to just run some Black Templar along the rim of all of the bases here, just to make them nice and extra sharp looking. But then I'm going to go on to these Blight Kings you see here, because these 10 Blight Kings are actually the last Blight Kings that I have, and doing those will complete all of my Nurgle stuff, which is actually very exciting. So, and that's the thing, like, I think outside of maybe, I could use more trees. I think eventually I'm going to need 2 more of the actual trees themselves. But yeah, beyond that, my Nurgle is complete. So I'm feeling good. I mean, because really what it is just I wanted enough stuff to play whatever style I wanted to play. And the only things that really appeal to me in the Nurgle army are the mortals. So these guys these last 10 dudes will allow me to field a really body heavy Blight King list, and of course my default is going to be the Puscoils, the guys riding the big fat flies. I do also have a Gut Rot Spoon that I just found recently, because it was surprisingly hard to find in stores, and so I have him. I'm gonna basically put him on hold. If you all know me, like, I don't particularly care for using named characters. I like to have my own story. So I own him. I might even just do a conversion with him. But yeah. So let's see. What's everyone working on in the chat? I see some folks are pouring in. I try to just jibber jabber about what I'm working on until folks start really coming in mass. And then we'll jump into some topics here. We're all working from home the next month. I'm a programmer. Yeah. School that I work at. Yep. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on with the sickness. I was told if you actually say what it's called, you get demonetized, which is crummy. Well, that video, anyway. But yeah, I finally have more time to paint. Kung Flu, I like that. That's what we're going to call it. Kung Flu. Okay. So, yeah, in the last week and a half, I have painted The bike unit that you just saw for Gene Stealer Cult, 16 actual Gene Stealers, upwards of 30 Neophyte Acolytes, 10 Hybrid Acolytes, and I think 10 of the Aberrants. So it's actually a lot of infantry stuff. I have a few of the vehicles, but big news for Doug in my sad little world. I'm getting an airbrush this weekend. I already ordered it. It's in the mail. And it's a crummy one, but it was suggested to me by Vince Ventrella himself, saint of airbrush painting, just because it's an Amazon one. And basically I had to buy a few other things with it, but for the most part, I'm all set up to go. So I'm excited. I'm excited to start using them. So I think I'm going to start with the skin. Yeah, and then paint my way outwards. It has been so long since I have painted one of these Blight Kings, and now I'm looking at them like, okay, where did I start last time? So, tell you what. Airbrush, remove contrast. Marquis de Sang, can you explain that? Airbrush, remove contrast. I have no idea what you're talking about. What skin colors do I want to have? Let's see. Now, we'll be honest. These guys are kind of going to be my ringers because I don't foresee myself using them a lot. I have 10, actually I have 15. Airbrush tends to smooth everything. Oh, okay. I have 10 immaculate, or 15 immaculate Blight Kings. So these guys, I'm honestly just going to try and bang them out. Because at this point, that's kind of what I want to do. I want to get projects done, you know? It feels good to have projects done. And so this week, I finished, 100% finished, my Necromunda terrain. Well, actually, that's true. So I had the terrain done before, but what I did this week was my last little thing for it, which was the tiles, the floor tiles. Jack from Rerolling Ones was kind enough to let me come and manhandle his airbrush for a little bit. I kind of wanted to just play around with one before I actually bought it, just to see if, like, you know, is this something I even want? And he was gracious enough to kind of walk me through it and then how to, like, clean it and that kind of stuff. So I'm feeling very confident about that. So yeah, all in all, I'm excited, and honestly, I think that once I get accustomed to the airbrush, I'm going to be cranking out projects like a madman. That's my expectation, at least. You know, there's always a learning curve, and I think that's fair. But I just mean in terms of, like, man, getting stuff even just primed, because the weather can be fickle out here sometimes when it comes to spray primers outside. So even just that would be immensely helpful. Because there's so many nights where I come home and I'm like, I wish that I could do this thing, but I can't because models aren't ready and it's too gross outside, or it's too humid, or too whatever, you know. Been painting the Bone Tithe Nexus mostly? Okay, cool. Nice thing about that first layer, since if you work from the bottom, whatever's deepest in the model up, you get to be real nice and sloppy, which I like. Jack's always saying, I'm so amazed at like how fast your brush strokes are. But it's like, nah, man. It's just, you're just messy. You're just messy, but if you plan how you're painting the right way, you can be as messy as you want. Dr. V just supporting your channel. Oh, thank you so much. That's incredibly kind of you. How do you guys transport terrain around? Mine is usually just like big Tupperware containers, basically. But, I mean, I'm also extremely rough on my models. Like, to the point where most folks just cringe when I walk into the store because the way I'm toting them around. So yeah, fun fact, if you want to paint dark skin, one of the best ways to do it, in my opinion, is you super thin down Sigor Brown, and I think it does an incredible job of just instant skin, instant dark flesh, boom. Could you explain the recipe you're going to use for these guys? Contrast paints, how do you like them? Sure, the recipe that I'm using for these guys, no problem. So I'm not going to do it all in contrast, just to be clear. I'm just doing basically the skin and some of the effects, but contrast is awesome. It is not what was advertised, which is, you know, you're just going to like hose down your models and boom, have a painted army. I think it requires a bit more finesse. Every color is a little bit different, so I recommend experimenting quite a bit. As far as what I'm doing personally on these, I'm going to do the skins as quickly as possible. Like you're seeing right now, I'm just doing darkened flesh. I'm going to do some highlights with a traditional paint here in a little bit, but for the most part, this is what they're going to look like skin-wise. I'm going to throw some light skin, white boys together as well. I like having a mix of races, now that Jack has pointed out to me that all the dudes I paint are white, which is true. And I have found the Sigor Brown thinned out root to be, oh, it's just perfect. How many points of Nurgle do you already have painted? I don't keep a running tally of points. So I have my 2,000 point army plus an additional probably somewhere in the vein of like 3,000 to 4,000, because I have the Glotkin, I just don't use them. So, you know, that's 420 right there. Yeah, a bunch more blank. Yeah, I don't actually keep. I know some folks like I have 10,000 points of Eldar, and it's like I don't keep that math on top of my head. But yeah, I think it's somewhere around there. I mean, basically, to put it really simply, what I have is enough stuff to have options at 2,000 points between Blight Kings and Puscoils is kind of the focus. And that's really what it comes down to. And it really is just those two. I don't have a lot of demons. I think I have 30 Plague Bearers. And honestly, I took him in a block of 20 just to sit an objective, and they do a good job of just, you know, getting in the way, basically. But they're not a unit that I want, like, an immense amount of. Or roughly how many models? Oh, that's a bit deceiving, because I don't have a ton of models. But if you don't know the unit, the Puscoil Blight Lords is the fat boys on flies. It's a unit of 2 dudes, but they have like 14 wounds together. So they're beefy little chunks. So yeah. I think people are more comfortable measuring their army in points than dollars. Yes. Yes. Let's see. We'll grab one more, because this is starting to dry up. But yeah, as far as contrast goes, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. If you haven't tried any, I can tell you this much: the browns, with the exception of Sigor Brown, are a dream straight out of the pop. Sigor Brown's different just because it's so dark, it's so intense, that you might as well just use like Dryad Bark or Rhinox hide or something like that, like an actual like normal paint. But if you want to do like snakebite leather, wildwood is a fantastic. I go through multiple things at the wildwood. Yeah, there's some really great uses for that stuff. Let's see. So yeah, what is everyone working on in the chat? I don't know if I asked that already, but I didn't see a ton of answers, so I'm curious. Can you contrast on regular old Corax white? Yes, you can. I recommend Wraithbone for most people. And the reason is because it's a very warm primer in terms of like, I find, so if they have Gracie or Wraithbone, and then Corax White would be even one step brighter than that. Which is fine. It does work over it. It's just, I find that the color just looks very different. Like, maybe very is even a strong word. I don't know. It looks a little different, but they'll absolutely work. Working on some Sylvaneth, sweet. I'm building up prosecutors for a warrior chamber warband. Nice. Does anyone know a bit site with good stock? No, I can't say as a do. I just go to eBay, basically. On 40k works. Nice. Yeah, I enjoyed my 40k orcs quite a bit. Very fun army. The vehicles and stuff they added, oh, so good looking. And yeah, so this one of the things I'm excited to have this project done and behind me. Love playing them. One thing I will say, and this is kind of something I brought up, sort of brought it up at the end of a Rerolling One's battle report, where maybe, I don't know if it was just me and Jack talking or what, but talking about the idea of just having a list that's a one-trick pony is actually kind of a nice thing. Because if your trick works, that's awesome. You do really well. If it doesn't work, you don't. But you only have to like really worry about a singular thing. And that's exactly how my Maggotkin operates. Which is, I'm going to throw between 4 and 6 of those big old fat flies in your face. Turn 1. I mean, whether or not I get first turn or not, they will be in your face turn 1. And the question is, you know, can you deal with that whilst also struggling to deal with everything else on the table that I have? And so that's, yeah, I mean, that's my kind of army, right? My kind of army is the perfect one where it's like, I ask you a question, can you deal with this? And if the answer is yes, I just lose. We have fun. We laugh a lot. If the answer is no, I super win. I enjoyed watching Evan Chosen series, and since I've seen you with Nurgle quite a bit, I was wondering if it was the Nurgle contingent of the Everchosen or just Nurgle in general that you liked. Well, I actually painted these guys up in the theme of Drowned Men before that book, long before that book ever was announced. I like it. I just like the theme of Nurgle. I don't know. There's a whole lot of stuff. I mean, part of it is, it's a combination of like, I really like all the Chaos Gods, with the exception of I'm just not a huge Slaneesh person. But, you know, I had a Tzeentch army. I at some point will probably end up doing a Khorne army, just because why not? And all that stuff. The only thing about, like, Nurgle that made it stand out as, like, this is kind of the thing I want to put enough work into that maybe I won't ditch it, is when I was playing Slaves to Darkness, this is, like, when 2nd edition first dropped, so I have never played them with their new book. But when 2nd edition dropped, I was playing my Slaves to Darkness, and I got really tired of picking up models. And by that I mean I spent so much time painting these stupid little, you know, marauders, and like, I'm so tired of picking these things up. Like, I spend more time deploying them than I do anything else, you know, or deploying them and picking them up than they actually spend in combat. And then they're a pain in the butt to move and all this stuff. And so the reason, to bring that into the point of why I chose Nurgle, really is because it's a few models and they're tough. And there's just something nice about that, you know, where you can count on 5 Blight Kings doing work, just even if it's just, you know, sitting on an objective. If that's what they need to do, that's work. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't have a grand, you know, deep, you know, inner reason. You know, my dad left and he left me his Nurgle battle tome. That kind of thing. Nothing that heartrending, but it's just, you know, I when I played Tzeentch, my issue was that the Tzeentch in the on the table does not represent what Tzeentch is in the lore, and that kind of bummed me out. So I went to an army that really does, I think, do a good job of representing what it's supposed to be. Now, a lot of people have complaints about, like, Nurgle shouldn't be this fast. And I understand to an extent, but also there's just a practicality of, like, okay, but to play in this game, you need to be able to get to objectives. And that just, you need something. Space lizards can hurl each other through time and space. Fat boys can hustle. You know, we're good sprinters. Fastest army in 10 feet, you know? Can't wait for Doug's dad lore video. That's a can of worms. It's just, why is this video 8 hours long? Is there really that much lore behind? No, he just cries for about 15 of it. Let's see. I didn't realize this guy wasn't even wearing a back piece to his chest. Yeah, so beyond just doing this, and the Gene Stealer cults, of course, what else have I been doing? Oh, I've been playing a metric ton of Fallout 76. I don't know about you guys. I know it's not, it had a, you know, much like AOS. Maybe I'm just a sucker for punishment with games that had bad launches. But I do enjoy it quite a bit. Alright. Like I said, with these 10 specifically, I'm cranking them. We're not gonna worry about the finer things. So let's grab... There we go. I have everything organized by colors. His chest plate is stuck on with pus and suction. Yeah, that one specific guy. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, I guess his shoulder thing. And there's a strap, but yeah. Yikes. I think everybody has a game they kind of know is bad, but it just hits all their buttons. Yeah, I'll give you that. I thought everyone was saying yikes because, like, the dad joke. I was like, I don't know, man, that's pretty tame. I say worse dad jokes than that all the time. Yes, but it's Fallout 76, then yes, I understand. Let's see. Country Road intensifies. I like that. I'm interested to see how these come out. Oh, yeah. Well, you just buckle up because I don't work tomorrow morning. And so I'm pretty much going to just, for the most part, I think get most of everything done for him tonight. Actually, I need a bigger brush. I forgot how fat these guys are with these big old armor sections. Here we go. The family is from... Okay, I wish 76 had a better launch. Is it good now? Kind of lost faith in Bethesda. I'm going to say this. It's still not a game for everybody, but I enjoy it. As far as 76 goes, my thoughts... Has it gotten better? Yes, they've done a lot of bug fixes and a lot of community outreach and that kind of stuff. I think it still has a really weak end game in terms of, like, you know, the actual how the plot resolves at the end of the actual game, because they want to leave it open so you can, like, duck in and out and, like, go backwards and still have it be fun. So it's kind of strange in that way, but I will say that I enjoy it. I really like, how do I say it? I like games where I just get to explore, you know? And honestly, that's all it does for me. I like to explore. They made some really cool settings and that kind of thing, and, like, areas to navigate, and I don't know. I like it. But I also don't, like, push it on people. I don't know. I see these people online who's like, well, actually, you're an idiot because you just don't give it a chance. I'm like, no. It was a bad launch. It was a bad launch. Their launch was bad and they should feel bad. But also, I feel like they've done an immense amount of work in the last year to improve things. And that also deserves recognition. I think if they had, when it launched, if they had just said, hey guys, we want to do something new, something bold in the future. We would love to do, like, you know, an online game where you can play Fallout with your friends. Can you help us? Like, and use it as sort of a community building thing of, like, how can we make this work and that kind of stuff, rather than, like, no, this is the full price game and it just doesn't work. So I feel like that was, shall we say, a misstep. But, you know, honestly, and this is kind of where my nerddoms collide, is part of it is I understand that for me, the love of the game is mainly because it's in West Virginia. And the reason I say that is because I am a true crime and monster fan and cryptids and all this kind of stuff, and the legend of the Mothman just captivates me. So I have been, like, you can interact with the Mothman in that game, and it just is awesome. So yeah, and I know, like I saying, like, that inordinately skews my opinion of just, like, this is the greatest game ever. They let me talk to the Mothman. You don't really talk to him, but you can interact a little bit. He gives you his wisdom, which means you get experience faster. Or a 5% increase to all your experience. Doug's favorite movie, Godzilla vs. Mothra. Mothra is my favorite of the Godzilla monsters. Adepticon became Adepticant. Oh, I like that one. The power of the Mothman. Exactly. He's often considered to be a harbinger of ill fortune and ruin, so that's obviously what happened here with Adepticon. Mothman showed up, everything got shut down. What would GW do with the reveals? Probably just... I don't know. I mean, Andy Smiley took a picture of him waiting at an airport. So maybe it'll just be him in a room watching a YouTube video and streaming it. I would normally be very sympathetic, but feels like it was a bad move to get on the plane. Need help? Do Beastgrave Nurgle units work in AOS? Yes. Yes, if you have your Age of Sigmar app, if you go to... it's under units and it's under characters. You have to look for her name. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but yeah, you can. And honestly, she's not bad. She basically has the same spell as the basic Nurgle wizard, which is not great. Basically, she just barfs on whoever's near her and does more wounds. But the thing that makes her unique is that she has 2 Blight Kings with her that can like take wounds for her. And so where the folly of the Nurgle wizard is that he often dies before he gets close enough to use that spell, she can much more reliably make it into range and be able to do that a few times. And of course, she would know all the... she would still get a spell from the spell wheel. The only thing I don't know, because I haven't looked too deeply at her war scroll, is if she has a specific sub-faction she's aligned to. Does anyone know that for sure? Because I started doing that, where a lot of the Beastgrave stuff has specifically like, this is... you know, the drowned men. This is this other thing. Are they all one unit? You deploy them. You have to buy them together. Like when you are doing points, they count as one single point cost. But then when you're playing the game, you have to basically they count as 2 different things. Which I'm not really a fan of. I'd rather have them just be a single unit, but I think in theory it helps with drops and that kind of stuff, like game balancing with drops. So yeah, if I remember correctly, if you open up the Azir app and you're using that to do your list building, it counts the, like her bodyguard dudes as free, but they come with her. Kind of a deal. Just ordered Arch Warlock and GW website. Anything I should know about painting metal minis? Not really. I mean, I don't think so. I'm sure there's some master modeler out there who paints things differently based on what they're made of, but not me. I would just really suggest you find like a sealant, which are, you know, any way to seal in models, mainly because like with metal stuff it has more heft and more weight, and so if it tips over it's more likely to scratch. Her War Scroll spell only has a 7-inch range. Yeah, but she can actually make it there versus the other Nurgle dude. Thanks to bodyguard action. AOS needs more terrain. Yep, been thinking about making Rot Kraken. That's awesome. I mean, you should do that just for glory. It sounds awesome. This is a little thinned out. We're going to do a little light coat and touch-ups once this coat's dry. The game has a lot of terrain. Point, counterpoint. I can't decide how I feel about it. Like when I think about a lot of terrain, I usually think about skirmish games, where it is like there should be very few square inches on the table that are barren. But of course, these are army games, and so you have to balance that with being able to move, say, a block of 40, you know, Moonclan Grots through something. Because that is a fun, flavorful army that will show up at events. So that's a tough one. I can't say for certain how much terrain is enough, but I can say that I really don't like the L wall that dominates every table of Adepticon or whatever. Not Adepticon, but ITS games. Where it's just a wall shaped like an L, and that's basically it. Just a bunch of L's to block line of sight. If you actually use the terrain rules in GHB, it adds another layer to the game. Yep, we typically do when we're, well, mostly a game with rerolling ones guys, but yeah, we try to. I will say I like the original 6. I'm not a huge fan of the new 6 they added, so now there's 2 different terrain charts. I'm not a huge fan of the new ones, mainly because a lot of them are at the start of your hero phase or the battle round, like roll to see if this thing blows up with volcano stuff. And they add one more thing to remember. Instead of, like, I think the base 6 are really great with their constant buffs that they give. Or they just present options for you, like the damn terrain where you can like sacrifice a dude and get some more mileage out of the guys left. I like that kind of stuff. And honestly, like, I use it. Because the kind of armies I play, where they're typically not super chompy, you know, Nurgle's not wrecking face with melee or whatever, or even range attack, like having, you know, taken D3 mortal wounds, that's fine. I'll shrug some of them. Then I get into combat and I mess you up. Yes, it's a win. Is this contrast paint? No, it is not contrast. This one, I used it for the skin. But this color I'm painting right now is actually Night Lord's Blue. Just kind of thinned down a little bit. By a little bit, I kind of mean a lot of it. I primed these guys forever ago. And, yeah, I didn't realize, you know, it's before like the Wraithbone and all kind of stuff, so contrast would look a little, it doesn't look quite right on these guys. They're a little too bright. And now, you know, whenever you paint a dark color over a light one, you have to do multiple coats because it streaks and all that stuff, rather than just globbing it on. And then I'll go back through and I'll give it a little wash. And it'll look awesome. Beast Chaos units are in Bray Herd. Yep. The Underworld Warband. Yep, for Beast of Chaos. Yeah, so before the FAQ for Nurgle came out, they gave them exploding 6s on an unmodified 6. There was this really fun, brief period of time where you could take the Beast of Chaos Warband, which basically you target an enemy unit and everyone in your army gets +1 to hit. So you could, in theory, get +1 to that exploding 6s, because Putrid Blight Kings have an ability where if they hit on a 6, it explodes into D6 hits, which sounds really good, but man, it's swingy. It is all out swingy. So the more you can mitigate that with pluses to hit before was awesome. Then they FAQ'd it to where now it's just a flat, unmodified 6, which honestly I like more. It's consistent language, and my opponent can't take it away from me with a debuff to hit. I love Thunderscorn on the Slaves to Darkness book. Interesting. Like, you want them specifically in that book? So for this guy's horn helmet, I'm going to have it fade from blue to a silver at the tip there, right along that edge. So I don't need to go crazy with the blue there. I'll give him black boots. I think Dragon Ogres are super cool. It's too bad they don't have more support, though. I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, especially the background they wrote for them, where they were basically peaceful Azir natives, and then Sigmar kicked them all out. I was like, oh, that's rough. That does not make him look good at all. I feel like that was one that was thrown in there just to make Vince Ventrello wrong about Sigmar being a good guy. Sucks, man. I know Wargamer Girl and Queen Alexis were going to Adepticon. I don't know who Queen Alexis is, but I know Wargamer Girl. Sigmar did what? Oh yeah, so the lore behind the Thunderscorn, which is the Dragon Ogre dudes, they used to live in Azir, because they are like lightning infused creatures. It was kind of like their home base, and then when Sigmar showed up to the realms, he claimed Azir for his own and then basically banished them out. So the reason that they often fight is because they're just, well, first of all, angry that their lands were stolen, but also that they you know, want to get some revenge and kick Sigmar's tail and eventually make their way back home. Ego Queen Alexis, she's into Sisters of Battle for 40k, does cosplay, and has been playing them for years. Okay, cool. Are we seeing High Elves return? Yes. Sort of. We don't fully know their lore, but we know that the army that's coming is largely based on High Elves from the old world. Man, a lot of contention about those new models, I'll tell you what. It's just another one of those things. People either love it or they just don't, and there's just nothing. I feel like very few people have a very neutral in between. Because, like, for me, you know, I feel like personally, like they don't grip me. I'll be honest. I don't know. Now that I've become accustomed to a certain level of weirdness with my elves that I quite enjoy. It's like, well, where are the seahorses? Or where are the eels? Or where are the, you know, insert weird fantasy thing that they decided to reinvent elves with? Like, but where's that stuff? All the other elves got cool stuff. They have snake ladies. Pointy elves was a better name. Changed my mind. It's certainly easier to remember than Lumineth Realm-lords. I like them. Hey, man. That's awesome. And I'm happy for you. I'm happy you got an army team that you like. Genuinely. Let's see here. Oh, the Grizzly. Hey, man, how's it going? Are you staying safe from the beer bug? Anyway, just primed up my Chaos army. Excited to get that started. I was wondering which Chaos faction was your favorite. Well, thank you so much for your donation. That means the world to me. Which Chaos faction? Well, I'm sitting here painting Maggotkin. So they're, you know, up on the list at the moment. But I'll do you one better. We'll get more specific. It is the Drowned Men. Basically, they focus a lot on All-Blight Lords, which is the Maggotkin boys on fat flies, and those are kind of the crux of my army. They make up the vast majority of it in terms of points, coming in at over half the list with a Affliction Cyst. And I really like them in the game. They're so aggressive, they can just come out and just reach up and hit your opponent turn one in deployment zone. You have to take 3 units as part of the battalion, but that's alright. I have a unit of 4, a unit of 2, and a unit of 2. And basically what I do is I start 1 unit of 2 in the sky, and then the 4 goes and intercepts whatever my opponent's most important thing is. And then the other unit of 2 kind of acts as a backup, to be honest with you, just to make sure that something makes it there. But with all the buffs and abilities and all that stuff stacking, I can wreck someone's day really easily. Have we talked about Adepticon yet? A little bit. Yeah, I mean, I posted on my social media stuff that I wasn't able to go about maybe 5 hours or so before the official word came down that basically the state of Illinois was like, Adepticon's canceled, and then the guys running Adepticon were like, oh yeah, we should probably cancel this. That's kind of how I feel how it happened. Guys, we're still having Adepticon. A CDC said it's going to be okay. At state of Illinois. Screw that. Adepticon. Oh, okay, that's a fine point you got there. That's pretty much how I envision that entire action going. Grizzly, that's a neat army. Mind Slaves to Darkness. Can't wait to paint Archaon model. Nice. That's awesome. Archaon is a beast. With the right keyword buffs and support, that guy can bang on all cylinders. Much more so than I feel like he could before. That's a ridiculous amount of paint. It looks like more than it is because I put water in and I kind of smooshed it all around. I've heard people like, yeah, how much paint do you go through? Like thinking I just like dunk everything in it, but nope, not actually that much. The old way seems more interesting than the new AOS. Thoughts? You mean as far as like the old world? I disagree, but here's the thing. Understand that like I didn't play it. I never played. I mean, I played. I was in fantasy battles for about 6 to 8 months before they blew it up and brought us AOS, and honestly, I've enjoyed it a lot more. I don't know. If you're talking about the setting and stuff, that's just personal taste. I like the heroic fantasy type stuff. I like not having to paint 300 models of dudes in rank and file line to be able to play that kind of stuff. You know, just the realities of where fantasy was at towards the end. I don't remember seeing the shield before. It's definitely a Nurgle one. It's got the bug eyes, but it's all wood on the other side. I don't think so. The world was just archetypes. Yeah, I will agree that I don't think that they have leaned hard enough into the crazy fantasy stuff. We see it sometimes, certainly in some battle tomes, where, you know, questions of like, what does it mean to be eternal with the Stormcast Eternals? Like, there are some books that start to kind of touch into that, and it's a deep subject about like the nature of sacrifice when you don't truly die, but you do something much worse, which is you get torn to shreds on a soul level. Like, there's all kinds of really cool discussions, but I don't think they go into them enough. And I think that's my critique of a lot of the Black Library stuff, but no, on the whole, I really do enjoy AOS more. It ain't an act. I recommend checking out some of the book Unholy at the end of It's About What You Like. Okay, cool. Painting a fantasy was way easier than AOS. You just paint 10 guys, nice, and don't care about the other 40. Yes, I've seen that done. In that brief couple of months where I was playing fantasy battles, I had high elves because they were the most elite army, and I was fairly broke at the time, and so I was like, hey, I want to play... What's the fewest number of models I need? Plus, you know, they had like the Island Blood set at the time, that kind of thing. And yeah, a lot of the local players. There was a Seraphon guy here. He's a super nice guy. He had exactly 10 immaculate Saurus warriors, and then 30 hunks of plastic behind him. That's no fun. At least go the way of Mantic and let me make dioramas or something like that, so I can make them at least a little interesting. It's like, you have the talent, you know how to do this, but you just don't wanna. I don't know how Skaven players is. I mean, I understand why they have the most devoted fan base, because man, if you painted out all those little dudes for fantasy battles and you had to be patient for like that long to get something that made sense. AOS, totally unique feel. Yeah, and honestly, I'm kind of with Mogwai Man there as far as like, I didn't hate it. I wasn't sad to see it go, but I also understand that like the most fun parts of it to me were the ones that were the most unique, and those have carried over, like the Chaos Gods and the Path to Glory. Like, that stuff's still there. really unchanged. You know, the stuff that like I feel like was unique. You win my vote when 120 stabbers are painted high quality. Exactly. I feel like that should be everyone's metric. Did you put the work in? Yeah? Done. Favorite player vote. Smash. This is me, audibly smashing the like button. Now these guys are not going to look as good as the 15 I already had done, but I did not build these and they were not built great. So, as I said, these are the ringers. These are the... maybe I should try out a Blight King list. Dudes. They're still gonna look fine. They'll look fine at the end. I know some folks are very, they don't like having, not mixed paint schemes in an army, although that too, but they don't like it, like, yeah, if I improved as a painter by the end of a project, I want to go back and fix up the earlier ones. Not so with me. As long as like the scheme is coherent and I can tell what everything is, I'm like, I don't care. I'll tell myself, I'll go back and fix this later, but then I immediately forget because honestly I don't care. Or I'm already on to painting the next army, which is typically what it is. Let's see. Since you knew this previously, I figured it'd be funny to break the news to you a second time. My wife is pregnant. Baby 2 on the way. Much congrats. No, says it's loading. Everything looks good on mine. She told me to tell you. Well, very congrats. I'll read Warhammer Adventures for you. Or for the little one, I suppose. Yeah, Orin's a good name. This is Emily 2+ Tough Dinar. Where's that middle name from? Nowhere. Don't worry about it. I'm pretty sure our first knows your voice. Oh, that's funny. It's been really funny to meet people in person when they're like, the way, I don't know, like, I met one person, and they're like, my girlfriend loves you. I'm like, oh, is she here? And she's like, no, she hates wargaming. And she just, she likes when I listen to your lore videos while we're in bed just, like, relaxing, because I guess, like, I've been told that I have like the ASMR voice that like resonates with some people, like to just help them chill. And apparently that is a thing. So yes, I was like, oh, that's a fun thing to hear. Someone just walks up and be like, my girlfriend loves you. Does she like Warhammer? No, bro. Was that at Nova? Yes, it was. Yeah, Nova was really the big time where I got a chance to meet folks in person. Because that might have been me. Well, I know it did happen multiple times, because I know one person, I think was my buddy Ben. Two plus channel 2 ASMR, yep. Oh, you know what? I missed this guy's helmet. That's why you always go back and double check. Doug has the older, loving brother voice. If that's what people need to hear, then yes, that's exactly what my voice is. So what I did was just added a whole heaping ton of water to my paint right there, and I'm just going back in any bits that are raised where the paint kind of thinned a bit. I'm just adding a little bit extra just to get the color right and consistent. Not going nuts. I actually kind of like it when it's blotchy. On these guys in particular, I wouldn't do it for anything else, but for Nurgle, I think blotchiness looks actually really good. Get that Nurgle bump. Let's see. It'd be legally insane to paint and play Skaven. I didn't do Skaven in fantasy battles. Only did it in AOS. And I gotta be honest with you, that book broke me. I had a hobby plummet for a while. Because basically, so if you don't know, with Skaven, I think the best thing you can do if you want to play Skaven, and you're like starting from scratch collection-wise, like you know, you didn't get a killer lot on eBay or something like that, you know, you're just starting off. I think the best thing you can do is just stop and come up with a plan. Decide exactly what models you want before anything else. Because for me, my problem was, I was like, oh, okay, so I got some clan rats, and I got some pestilence, dude. That's awesome, I'll start building an army, but the way that the battle line works for that faction is very rigid in terms of like when things count as battle line and when they don't. And so there was a point where I had painted it was well over 100 models for that army, but I didn't have a functional list because of the way battle line works. I was like, this sucks super hard. Because I had done a little bit of Pestilence, and I had done a little bit of Clan Rats. And when I say a little bit, I mean blocks of 40. Multiple blocks of 40. So I was just like... And then I just tapped out. I was like, I can't do this anymore. My wandering eye of saying, maybe I'll do this faction. Okay, well, maybe I'll do this subset. Maybe I'll do this. I kind of like to pivot. Like, for example, with these Maggotkin guys... My main reason for getting the army is because I really wanted to play the Puscoils. But I got a bunch of Blight Kings because I thought, well, maybe someday I want to do that. But that same logic applied to Skaven represents an immense amount of work. Pivoting from using Clan Rats as your battle line to Plague Monks is a lot of work. And so you can't dilly or dally with that. You got to know what you want. Vinci, I have to supervise my friend's GW purchases. He has pretty much 1K, pretty much every 40K faction, but not a single one at 1,000 points. That's brutal. See, I joke about having hobby ADD or whatever like that, but honestly, like, all the projects I have, unless I just realize that I don't enjoy painting them, I always make it to 1,000 points. Like, or a playable list. I think stuff that I realized I didn't really care for painting, the Deepkin. That was one. I got really on the hype train. I love the way the models look, but I just didn't enjoy painting them. There's too much detail. They're too small. They die too easy. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I was like, eh. And so I stopped. But I mean, like, you know, that was a rarity. Usually if I'm like, oh, I want to do this, it's because I want to paint it and I crank it out. Again, just adding a bunch of water, making this almost like a wash. And just patching up those areas that got a little bit too thin. Just building up that color a little bit more. Alright. Everyone who played Skaven in fantasy battles was absolutely committed. Oh yeah, absolutely. He just buys pretty things. Oh, your buddy with the 40k thing, and that's something I have to remind myself is like some people come to this hobby for a lot of reasons. There are folks who are model enthusiasts that have never and will never play any of these games, and that's hard for me to wrap my mind around because like there's a lot of companies that make really cool models. Like what? Who just woke up and was like, I want to own a whole chapter of Space Marines. You know what I mean? I don't relate to that, but I respect it. I mean, I know multiple people who have read Black Library books, you know, because they found them at Barnes & Noble. They don't play any of this stuff. They're like, oh yeah, I love the lore. It's a great setting. Never touch the game. So, like, I just got to keep reminding myself that there's just a lot of reasons why Games Workshop has set it up that there are multiple reasons why someone would be involved with their IP that have nothing to do with the game. Even though, obviously, they want to cross-pollinate, you know, show you cool models that represent the cool things in the book, etc. But Nurgle players could always be fanatical. I knew a guy who broke into a tomb for a human skull. Oh, that's not okay. Leave it for the dead, Doug says. I feel like every army has those players that like try to take it to the extreme. Not because they're really devoted to that army, but because they're like, I want to be edgy. I want to be the bad boy of Nurgle players. I want to go desecrate a human corpse or something stupid like that. Or like the Slaneesh player is the typical one to me who like brings an adult toy to the table. It's like, oh yeah, this is my terrain piece. And you're like, shut up, edgelord. I'm fanatical. Okay. Mix my own snot into the paint for this Nurgle army? Yep. Well, that'll get you banned from events if there are any more events after Corona 2020. You put your snot in this? Mother of God. There we go. Now that blue is looking nice and built up. Got into Warhammer through the Total War games. Ended up buying painting models because of that. Yeah. That's awesome. You never be like a real Stormcast player to get hit by lightning. Yeah. Slaneesh player. Yeah, so this is a conversation I had, it was a long time ago. I think it was back when the first rumors of the Slaneesh book were coming out. People were like, oh man, Doug loves Chaos Armies. He's going to jump onto that. And I was like, and I made this statement, and it was shamelessly ripping off the statement made by another big person in the AOS community, and that is Dave Witek, who does the Garage Hammer podcast. He was talking about going to see Deadpool when Deadpool came out. And he said it perfectly. He said, I like Deadpool. I don't like Deadpool fans. And what he was meaning was, you know, you have this property that is very interesting and to an extent, I'm not going to give Deadpool too much credit, but intellectually challenging, because it does a lot of fourth wall breaking. It has a lot of commentary about how we view superheroes, that kind of stuff. But you get the fans who are like, oh, that guy dressed as Deadpool did a crazy thing, I'm going to do an even crazier thing. And it kind of just gets out of hand a lot of the times at conventions and shows and that kind of stuff. And they just kind of break the line a little bit. And so, like, he was separating, like, I like this, but I don't like the people who lean and identify too heavily into it, because they kind of lose sight of, like, hey, you're still in an event full of people, you need to be respectful of personal space and all that stuff. And I just really liked that way that was said, and I've kind of adopted that as my stance for, like, Slaneesh, which is just, like, you know, reading the book, Slaneesh is awesome, because of what she represents in terms of, you know, soul devotion and the dangers of that. And I think it's super cool. It definitely, to me, sounds like a primordial evil type thing, but when people get too weird about it, I'm just like, eh. All right. So with that done, need some Zundrust. Loving the paint scheme. Oh, thank you. Yeah, if you ever haven't seen my finished ones, it's over on Instagram. So now I'm going to drop the... So I wanted to make them like naval colors, and so you have like the naval blue, like a uniform, and then the khaki. As I'm going to build up on all of the fabrics, basically. My experience with interest is I don't like people who define themselves by their interest. I think that's an absolutely fair thing, and it's something that it's something that I kind of struggle with. And I don't mean like that I define myself by these kinds of things. What I mean is, like, I love when I get emails from people being like, hey man, I was having a really rough time. I mean, one guy was like, you know, I was about to lose my vision. I was, you know, slated for surgery to get my eyes done. And while I was recovering, like, I just got a chance to listen to your videos, and thank you for helping me feel like that meant the world to me. I met that guy at Nova. But like that, so I want to be there to help people catch a break, because frankly the real world can really suck sometimes and just cause a lot of pain, and I love that. At the same time, I'm also super opposed to escapism, you know, and it's hard to balance the two. Whereas, like, I think people, specifically a lot of it's when they go to conventions, and they kind of like, for some folks, they kind of view it as like, oh, now I can be my true self. I get to act like Deadpool, who I've imagined being forever. You know, that's not healthy. You should still just be you. But that's my opinion. So that's a tough one. Tough one to balance, because it's like, you know, I want to provide that for people, but then the folks who get too into it, you're like, man, you forget that I'm just a person who likes a game. Let's see. Where do I start with AOS fluff? I have a playlist on my channel. I might have to dig for a little bit, but it's just straightforward called AOS lore. And I basically do videos by faction. If you want to start reading like Black Library, if you're a novel person, you want to start reading the Black Library novels, I recommend Soul Wars. Generally, it's thick, but I don't know. I think it's a great book. Also, Nagash Undying King is a really fun one, but that one's definitely more death focused, but depending on what army you're interested in. I'd say those are both super solid choices. Soul Wars will get you more caught up with the main events, and Nagash Undying King is just a really good book. I thought you were a lore AI. Pretty much, you'd think. You wouldn't believe the backlash that I got, man, when I started doing stuff on, like, I did one 40K video. Now I'm up to 3 Necromunda videos and a couple Infinity ones. People act like I personally betrayed them. You're just like, man, just wanted to talk about space people. Did you do a review on Gloomspite? No, I have not yet. I do want to, because I find Gloomspite gets to be a super creepy army. And I would love to read more about it. Honestly, they kind of leaned into like body horror, which is kind of my jam. Gross, macabre creations of twisted imaginations. We come here for one thing only. Yep, pretty much. Oh, I will say, all the AOS people who I've gotten to watch my Infinity stuff, they go, I'm not going to play it, but that's kind of cool. I'm like, yeah, that's all there is to it. Things can just be kind of cool. My thing that is not wargaming related that I keep an eye on, because I just think it's cool, is like RC helicopters, that kind of stuff. I don't know why, for some reason, specifically RC helicopters, like not quadcopters, they have to be like perfect replicas of existing helicopter models. I don't know why. I just like watching them. There's a whole bunch of stuff online about that kind of thing. I'm like, oh, this is cool. But we definitely have a culture where, like, I think we are kind of incentivized to, like, be obsessed with something. Like, pick one thing, find your niche, and then dive really hard into it. When the world is meant to be sampled, people. Try every game. Read all the books from the different IPs. Spartacus has some hardcore fantasy fans. I haven't seen Spartacus. I'm all in for Infinity now. You got me. Aw, yay. One of us. Honestly, to be honest, that's really one of the things I'm sad about when it comes to Adepticon. Is Adepticon was supposed to be the big to-do launch for Code 1, which is the Infinity variant they've come out with, which is supposed to be like a really good like intro level type thing. My understanding is that if you consider main Infinity as 40k, this is closer to Kill Team, where the rules are reminiscent and they're all built to like teach you to you know, kind of bring you into the main game, but it is its own thing. It's independently balanced and that kind of stuff. They have their own team, so I was actually super excited. But that's okay. They'll figure out some way to get it to us. Oh, thank you. That's so great to hear everybody's got some interest. There's no player base around here. Yeah, honestly, that's always the hardest thing. Personally, like, I love games that have campaigns, but you gotta have like a committed group for a campaign. But that's my preferred way to play games. It's where they all kind of work together to make something cool happen story. And Infinity does have cool campaign systems in terms of like campaign parity, so it was awesome. It was like an all-out assault that involved all the factions trying to fight off the alien invaders. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And we have I'm kind of spoiled, we have a group out here, but man, my schedule just does not line up with theirs in any way, shape, or form. So most of the time I just can't make it out to their games. And honestly, don't really want to. I don't want to go out on a Tuesday night. I want to go home. That's all I want to do. Remember in published campaign GW did for Fantasy, that was so cool. Like, it had progression charts for heroes. Nice. Yeah, actually my first real exposure to the hobby was a Path to Glory campaign back when it was just Chaos factions who could play it in fantasy battles. Because it was a specific format to, you know, these 4 warbands are trying to gain the attention of the Chaos gods that they love, kind of thing. And I was like, oh, this is beyond cool. Oh, there it is. 15 years ago? Well, that would have been Fantasy Battle, so I'm not sure what campaigns were rocking back then. I'm not a fantasy battle historian, per se. All right, so what do we got next? Still kind of waiting for bits to dry, but we can start going ahead with some of the metals. Actually, let's get the Wildwood Contrast, the best contrast of all the contrasts. Around the whole Sotek thing happened? Well, I don't know. Sotek. Was it wasn't there a thing called like the Storm of Chaos campaign? Is that what you're talking about? Hit me with one of your top 10 AOS fun facts. Fun facts. I already did one with the Thunderscorn. Well, facts that I find fun. Ironweld Arsenal in Age of Sigmar. In their description, it lists models that are cooler than anything GW has ever put out, and I don't know why we don't have them yet. Namely, there's like gun walkers and arsenal trains that just have guns loaded to the brim in every direction. Cog forts, of course, and I'm just a little like, why don't gimme? Like I said, we're cheating a little bit with this one. I'm phoning it in a little bit. We're still going to do highlights and that kind of stuff, but for the most part, we're trying to make this quick and painless with these dudes. What else? AOS fun facts. Marathi tried to hit on Nagash at one point and it failed. He smacked her and then she turned into a snake in front of everybody and she got super embarrassed. Although I'm not a fan of domestic abuse, I would go ahead and label that fact as quite fun. Mama Marathi, no. What else? Hey Doug, probably a tired and obvious question. What made you change your mind away from Beasts of Chaos being your main army? Sure. Really what it was it was a few things. So the biggest one, truthfully, was that I got really tired of just taking models off the table. Like, you know, they die in droves, which is kind of the army shtick. And that's fine. It's just, I got so into painting so many of them that I was like, I am tired of pulling these guys off the table. I want something with some staying power. And at the time, the book had a lot of poor internal balance. And by that I mean, like, to me, internal balance, when it's really well done, is like, I can walk up to this book and be like, I think X looks cool, and X will do exactly what it's supposed to. But in that one, when it launched, the Tzeentch stuff in the book was just heads and tails better than anything else, and it was such a bummer. Yeah, so, and I didn't care for the Tzeentch stuff at the time. Now I kind of turned my mind around then about that one, but yeah, I don't know. It wasn't gripping me. And then, like, again, kind of like the Skaven thing where it costs a lot to pivot your collection. Like, if I say, man, I got all these gore, but you know what's even better than gore? On gore, which is true for the longest time, at least. You know, to do that pivot, it's like, well, if I have these huge blocks of one thing, I have to, like, go out and repaint and get a whole bunch of blocks of something else. And so it kind of became tedious. It was a very tedious army to paint. Honestly, I've improved as a painter, so I could probably crank it out a lot faster now. Like, I kind of impressed myself the other day with how fast and efficiently I'm going through that Gene Stealer cult I have over there. I'm just like, at this moment where I step back and I was like, hot damn, and I'm cranking these guys out. Let's see here. Bone Splitter fun fact. Bone Splitters took first in a GT. Okay, right on. I stand by my Newman meme. Bone Splitters won GT. See? Nobody cares. Something you can kind of do with contrast that's fun is I took a thinned out bunch of wildwood and I put it, like, from the start of the horn halfway out, and the next I'm going to take some of the skeleton horde and cover the whole thing with that, and so that way when the darker part shows through, it'll look like we spent a bunch of time doing a fancy transition when we didn't. Have you seen the mass Brayherd list that was used in the Australia GT? I have not. But, I mean, you had me at mass Brayherd. I love the idea of horde armies. I never want to play one. Like, and honestly, that's the only thing that has kept me from doing Flesh Eater Courts. Because multiple times Jack has been like, oh, I have some Flesh Eater Courts I can get you. You can hook you up with an army, get you set, get you rocking and rolling. And I'm just like, I'm just going to get rid of them. Like, I'm going to get burned out. Can already see it. And I'm going to get rid of them. It's like, there's not a point. Let's see. Nothing in AOS uses squares anymore. Just, oh, okay. Yep. Sorry, I'm just popping into the chat here and there when I can, when I'm not, mid brush stroke. And right now we're at that critical part of every model painting with Doug where everything looks like hot garbage until it all kind of comes together at the end and looks amazing. By my standards, anyway. Alright. Let's see. So what you're saying is you should send them to you? And when you're done or not, Jack? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just send them my way. You can still put the work on his tab, though. He's happy to pay for it. I asked him. I was like, Jack, you sure you want me to take these Flesh Eater Courts, even though I didn't pay for them, and I'm probably going to just trade them away? He was like, yeah, boo, I got you. I was like, kind of weird he started calling me that right now, but okay. That's pretty much how that conversation went. Love my daughter Arcane. Ruin the Temple. Yeah. There needs to be a big battle line tournament. Only list spamming the same silly battle line. Oh my god, that would... Oh. Well, honestly, I actually be kind of down for that now that I think about it. Since I gave it a passing thought, I would just take a bunch of Blight Kings and Putrid Blight Kings, if that would count. That sounds fun as heck, because I would have like a third of the models as anyone else there, and I would just be like, all my attacks are done. Super easy turn for me. As long as I can have one hero and take the Harbinger of Decay, it's like I'm just going to frustrate the heck out of anyone I play against. Awesome. Oh, of course, just with friends. Yep. Yeah, that's not something... I feel like most of the time competitive folks just don't show up to events like that, which is fine. I mean, that's cool. That's not their jam. I like how they bring back old factions with a new spin. What could Brittonians be in AOS? Ooh. What could Brittonians be? Good at the game? Hell, just kidding. What could they be? I don't know. I'm kind of having trouble thinking about that one. I'm fine with Flesh Eater Court's delusions. Yeah. I honestly, yeah, I do really like the delusion stuff. It's kind of my jam. I don't know. They never, I'm trying to think about this, and I should probably think out loud because that's better YouTubing, but I'm trying to think, like, what was the, like, on the table, right, when it comes to actually playing the game, what were the Brittonians, like, shtick? Like, what was their thing? Was it cavalry? Was that it? For some reason, I think it's that, but I can't remember. Yep, cavalry. Okay. Well, honestly, I mean, I would like to see that. A lot of these armies, they have cavalry options, but only a few of them, like, really lean into it. Like, I feel like even Deepkin, the only reason that I feel like I see a lot of their cavalry is because a lot of people just poo-poo every other unit in that book. I don't think it's people necessarily saying that, like, they're the most effective unit in the world all around, which they're really good, I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, it's like, how much of it is I like cavalry versus I just don't like everything else in this book. But yeah, a pure cavalry faction. I also think, and this is just my opinion, I've said it for a while now, but if your army has cavalry, there should be a way to play an all-cav army. Just straight up. Like, no debate. Because I don't like that Dracolines have no way of being cavalry. Or being battle enemy. And that's a real shame, because those things are cool. Like, if my... There's nothing game-breaking about it, because if my fat 7-wound bloat flies can be battle line, you know, Dragon Boy should be able to be as well. Two plus tough merch when? Oh, where? I have some in the description below. I have a cool little Stormcast thing. I'm going to be working on that a bit more to get some cool stuff. But yeah, cav armies would be great. Yep. And that's the thing, is I like armies that focus on movement, but in traditional ways. Like, I mean, we're having this discussion amongst the Rerolling 1 guys of just like Seraphon and their movement stuff. I'll say movement malarkey for my good buddy Jack. But it's just the idea of, like, you know, teleporting is huge. I mean, it's a huge ability. But I still like just the running up. Like, I love when my plague flies. I get to, you know, stretch that tape measure out. And I'm like, I moved 26 inches this turn or something ridiculous like that. I get to do that kind of stuff and make a fool out of myself when I still fail a charge. But yeah. BCR is mostly cavalry army. That's a good point. BCR already does exist. That's right. Yeah, we'll stick with this one. They are cavalry, that's true. I guess, yeah, I guess I'm kind of thinking horses when I think of cavalry, but that's not necessarily true. Speaking of which, I still need to go watch Warhammer Weekly did a revised look at Beastclaw Raiders. I need to go check that out. Or not Beastclaw Raiders, but Maw Tribes. Okay, gents, I'm out of here. Have a good stream. Take it easy, Sean. Say hi to the missus for me. He's local. I know him. I'm not just being a creeper. Your new couch looks great, Sean. Love where you moved it. Okay, I'm going to make the fly on his chest gold. Okay, you'll have cavalry if you count ships. That's true. I would say that the balloon boys, the Indra-niggers or whatever like that, they definitely fill a cavalry type role. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm interested to see how much is left reveal-wise for the new elves coming out. Because it doesn't feel like a full army yet, but I don't know why I feel that way. You know? I don't know. I'm going to have the rings of this. Silver. I'm actually going to do his mask in silver as well. Achillean foot units? Yes. Oh, that'd be sweet. They don't have an Underworlds warband, do they? The Deepkin? No, they don't, because Daughters of Cain. Yep, okay. I was trying to think. Daughters of Cain is the first real elfy one, I think. Though I suppose there's also the whatever guys came in Beastgrave, the forest spirit dudes. Kurnothi, there we go. The information's in there, just takes a bit to come out sometimes. I'm kind of suspecting you're at least getting one more unit. That's what I would think. I mean, it's weird, because, like, all the things that they've shown are, like, these really... Like, if we were still playing fantasy battles, you'd be like, oh, that's an army. You're right, because you got your cavalry, you got your bow boys, you got your basic line spearmen. Like, oh, okay, that's a full-blown army. But now in AOS, I'm like, wait, where's the weird stuff? Give me the weird stuff, man. I wouldn't be surprised if there was like an artillery piece, something like that. Because that's, if you don't know, like the Lumineth were kind of mentioned a little bit, sort of in passing, in Wrath of the Everchosen, where they were manning the defenses of Slaneesh's prison. And I don't know if it was Wrath of the Everchosen or if it was in the actual Slaneesh book, but they did mention that they have like ballista towers and that kind of stuff. So I don't know if there's like fortifications specifically, then they won't ever show up on the table, but I mean, like, something exists that they could have artillery power. Which, personally, I like to see. Although, I don't know, man, if you can have one elf pull back 3 arrows at once. Do you need an artillery piece? He kind of is. I made the joke in the chat that I was in where it's just like all the elves from the old world standing around like, what happened to all of our bolt throwers? And then just like one elf flexing in the corners like, you mean me, you know? And all of a sudden that's how we got this new unit. But there's another example of models that I look at and I'm like, I understand from a technical level of like the detail and the motion and all that kind of stuff. Like these are amazing models. They just don't speak to me. I expect them to have walking arcane constructs. That'd be so cool. That would get me in. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't realize how much I've changed to embrace the ridiculousness of AOS types of fantasy until I saw those and I was like, oh, so they're just like elves. You know what I mean? But then like some people are like, oh my god, thank Jesus, they're just like elves. And I'm just like, eh. Would love destruction elves. Yeah, I'll be honest. One thing I think this would be, it would require an immense amount of playtesting. But I would love to see cross Grand Alliance armies. Because in that one of those books I recommended earlier, Nagash Undying King, we do have an example of, you know, humans in Shyish. But they're not baddies, you know what I mean? They're not bad guys. They're just people. Skycut meta confirmed. Is that kit still available? Can you still get the Skycutter? Or do they move it to the ancient retirement home that is Legacy War Scrolls that nobody seems to look at even though they're totally fine? You're delivering the sarcasm too dry. I may have jumped the gun and picked up 6 Gargants. Holy smokes. Yeah, I'm super interested to see what they do with that. Because I'm not somebody who's like, we need new models. I just like, but if we're gonna have a book all about Gargants and we just have the one, that kind of sounds sad. I want at least a few options for them. Well, there's a lot of bits in that kit. I don't know. When someone like says to me, like, Doug, close your eyes and I'm gonna whisper something beautiful in your ear, and I go, okay. I close my eyes and they go, Sons of Behemat. First of all, instantly fall in love. Secondly, I hear that and I think about like Knight Titans, like the Knight Army that's in 40k, but for AOS. Right, which is like, you know, it's like a couple stompy big guys and they're just like living large and in charge and having a grand old time. But that requires a few different options, right? Even within that book, there's a few different ways to build knights and that kind of stuff, and different weapon options to do for different roles. And so, if it's just you know, someone was having a smoking weed and was just like, what if we made a book that was just all one model? And then everyone else is like, whoa, that doesn't interest me. But if it really is a fully fleshed out thing, I'm on board. Can you imagine the draw strength of a Gargant bow? Oh, that'd be awesome. That's what I mean. Wouldn't that be amazing? Like, here's your Gargant army. Here's your Gargant with a bow. He only gets like 2 shots, but those shots can pierce the heavens themselves. You know, that'd be kind of awesome. I'm excited because on was it Saturday? Saturday I should be airbrushing, and then we'll see what Doug Unchained is going to be like if I can complete projects even faster. You guys thought I was army swapping a lot now. Imagine if I can get this stuff painted in a reasonable time. Skycutter's all gone. Oh, okay. Like a new Blood Bowl. Wait. I hated it like a new Blood Bowl. You don't like the new Blood Bowl? Or the, I guess, current Blood Bowl? Gargan Blood Bowl team, it's one guy. That'd be amazing. It's growing on me. Blood Bowl is. I painted 3 Blood Bowl teams and never played it. You know, but that's the great thing about Blood Bowl is that like they can be these fun little painting projects. And I do the same thing with Underworlds warbands, where like, you know, I can pick this up, get my fun out of it, and if I don't like play it, I don't feel like I've wasted anything. You know, it's like $35, $40, $50, whatever, depending on the kits and the game system you're talking about. But like, I can have no guilt, you know, building and painting those things, and if I don't play it, that's fine. And there's something nice about that. Whereas I'm looking at stuff like, man, do I want to buy any more Infinity models? Like, well, I have hard enough time getting games in as it is. You know, how much further should I be investing in that? That kind of thing. Though I'm spoiled, I do have a pretty big and deeply, weirdly deeply committed Blood Bowl group out here. Like they're just like super on the ball about announcing events, and they've always got something going on. I don't know. I can't keep up. Like it's too much for me, you know. Because then you show up and you're like, okay, well I just wanted to kind of play this one game. They're like, no, you got to get hooked into our league that we're doing. It's, you know, the Emerald Cup and all this, you know, because Seattle's the Emerald City. And you're just like, I just kind of wanted to come for game night, bro. Where did I put? Here we go. Do you ever use your Underworld units in AOS? I have before. Any unit here to me is like the defining thing of like if I will use an Underworld unit in the game. Okay, does the schmoes, right? Because usually it's always like a named character and then nobody's with him. Can the schmoes take wounds for the hero? If yes, I am super down to play them. Because the thing is, when it comes to a lot of these heroes, like they often have really cool things, but they don't get a chance to use them because if it's too good, your opponent knows about it and they just snipe them out. But if they can, like, you know, kind of like we were talking about the Nurgle warband lady, you know, that spell is terrible on the base Nurgle wizard. It's not as bad on her when she can feasibly, you know, I mean, there's a solid chance that she can make it into range to use it. Because she's not a high priority. Or at least your opponent certainly will not think so until she's, like, in the face. Can still do cool things, looks stunning. I mean, that model just looks incredible. The Nurgle lady. You know, and it's the same thing with the Beast of Chaos Warband, which is great if you run any Chaos army that can ally them in. Because he pick an enemy unit, everyone gets +1 to hit that dude. And the gore and ungore and all that kind of stuff can take wounds for him, and like that's just fantastic. So, you know, like, are there other good ones? Sure. Yeah. But you really get my attention when it's a hero with a built-in bodyguard. I'm like, oh, I like that. Because then they let you do all the things you always wanted to do with the base version of the hero, but you can't because they'll get him killed too quickly. Hey Doug, rebasing lizards from squares to rounds. Lord bless you. There's a local store up here that sells used models. And, you know, people just stop doing projects and just want to trade it in for some quick cash kind of thing, store credit. And yeah, they have a whole mess of Seraphon right now, and you can see the exact moment that whoever owned them before, his soul broke a little bit, because like they're just in various states of assembly, and some of them are like on squares, some of them are on rounds, and some of them are off, and it's just like you can see it. You can see they're like, you know, I don't need these things, and just put them in a shelf. And right now I'm being such a good boy by not buying anything. I'm just painting what I got. I feel good though. I've gotten a lot of projects completed lately, and that's been really nice. Like these guys will finish out my Nurgle. And I finished all the Necromunda terrain. I don't know, just feeling real good about stuff lately. For some reason I read rounds to squares. That's called Listexia. Okay. So let's see. Oh man, it's already 8:30 or 8:15. Okay. Well, friends, I think I'm going to pause there for the night. I made some really good progress. Really, all I have to do left is go on with the golds and do some washes to kind of like cover up the creases of where things are. Scatterbreak says, wow, good job with no new purchases, but what is a box that would break your will and get you to spend some money? A box that would break my will and get me to spend some money. If I could find the first version of the Kill Team set that had Gene Stealers and Mechanicus and all that terrain, that would probably do it. That's about it. That's all I can think of. Honestly, I'm pretty well set. Let's see. All right, friends, I'm going to go ahead and hop off. Vincey, I'll get you with a bedtime story next time, my friend. I got to hop off. But you all stay classy. Have a wonderful evening. And you will be seeing me quite a bit this weekend because I want to do live streams and stuff. So anyway, I will catch you.